This session is really to completely celebrate that the women we have in HDR UK and working in science, and just recognizing really that having different approaches, different perspectives is what drives scientific innovation, and that having variety really is what's important in science. And so just recognizing that different women bring different perspectives. And so I'm going to ask, we're going to have a presentation from Rhiannon, who's going to talk about her way into statistics and as a professor of statistics. And then we're going to have a bit of a discussion with Amy and Tash about how they've come into science and their thoughts and their pathway here. And then I'll open it up to people. But if people have any questions, if they can put them in the chat, or we'll be opening it up for questions towards the end. So Rhiannon, if you'd like to go ahead. Thanks very much.
That's great. Thanks very much. And thanks very much for the invite to talk today, particularly on International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So as Sinead mentioned, I am a professor of statistics and I'm based at Swansea University Medical School. And here we would normally acknowledge all of the data providers and so on, but I think it's really poignant today in particular to thank all of my many mentors who have been fantastic throughout my career, and of course, all of my funders who have enabled this research and my career. So I'm going to start just to give you a kind of idea, a whistle-stop tour of what I do and why it matters. So in essence, my role is to develop and apply advanced analytical methods that allow us to make the best use of large-scale and often complex data. And we often want to analyse this in the best way so we can provide evidence-based recommendations for healthcare policy and decision-making. So one of my key roles is to actually communicate uncertainty in that decision so that evidence can be more effectively used by policymakers, patients, clinicians, and regulators. And ultimately, the reason that we do all of this is so that we can improve how healthcare decisions are made and therefore improve outcomes for both patients and the NHS. And I just thought I'd give you an idea of an example, I guess, of this sort of policy relevant research. And it's been 10 years since I published on this framework now, but this is effectively a framework that allows us to evaluate lots of different treatments or interventions that belong to the same class of drug, let's say, or treatment, particularly when we have very limited information. And this framework has actually been used by NICE in the UK to make decisions on a number of drugs across a number of different conditions for use in the NHS across England and Wales. And one example of its use was to appraise relugolix for treating hormone-sensitive prostate cancer, which is now recommended for use. But one of the reasons why I picked this one is also because it was picked up by the Canadian equivalent of NICE called CADITH. And as a result, relugolix is also now available in Canada because of the use of this framework. So my path into science, well, I went right back into the archives and found this personal statement that I wrote just before sitting my GCSEs in 2006, where I say that I intend to go to sixth form to study human biology, double maths, geography and physical education. And although I have not decided what I would like to do as a job, I would like to go into the medical profession and ideally apply maths. My favourite part of work experience in a GP practice was evaluating whether new equipment would be effective and financially viable. I was just 16 years of age here, and at this time I had absolutely no clue what I wanted to do as a career. But what I can now clearly see is that I am describing a career here in medical statistics, and more specifically, actually, a career in health technology assessment. But at the time, I didn't know that these roles existed. I didn't know what my job that I do now looks like. So I ended up choosing just subjects that I enjoyed, and they were maths and sports science. And in 2008, I went to Loughborough University to study this joint honours. And I chose this mostly because it covered all the things I was interested in. So sports medicine, sports research, mathematical biology, and statistics. And it just so happened to be a bonus that I could play netball and throw myself into a big foam pit in gymnastics as part of my degree. So this is where I went and I studied maths and sports science. And during my time at Loughborough, I listened to a talk on medical statistics and how to pursue an MSc in medical statistics by the University of Leicester. And to do this, I actually undertook a fellowship award funded by the National Institute for Health and Care Research, the NIHR Methods Fellowship, and they subsequently also funded my doctoral research fellowship to get my PhD in biostatistics. Now, these are highlighted in big red boxes on my kind of path into science, because ultimately, if it wasn't for these fellowship opportunities, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today. The reason for that is because it allowed me to gain experience in what an academic role might look like or a career in research might look like. It enabled me to get the qualifications that I needed to be where I am today. But it also provided a salaried position. And when we've got competing sort of, I guess, job opportunities, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry, where I could have gone straight from MSc into the pharmaceutical industry on a relatively high salary, this really offered me that opportunity to kind of take a step and understand what research might look like in a paid position. So ultimately, I owe an awful lot to the NIHR for this support. And from there, I gained lots of different experience. So I started to lecture, I did some consultancy for the pharmaceutical industry, and I started to build a network with institutions like HDR UK, where I could network with other researchers in this space. My methods then started being used by NICE in the UK, and subsequently in 2020, I was invited onto the NICE appraisal committee, where I could appraise new drugs for use in the NHS. And I still am a member on NICE. And this offered a whole different perspective to my career. It gave me very much that policy perspective that we often need in research. I moved back to Wales in 2021, where I joined the university, where I joined Swansea University as an associate professor of statistics. And here, I really started to see the benefit of using routinely collected linked electronic health record data, and in particular, the use of the SAIL data bank, which is housed at Swansea University. I've had loads of exciting things as part of my career, and just some of these are highlighted here. So I was invited to attend the World Laureates Forum in Shanghai, China, as a promising young scientist, where I got to network with Nobel laureates across the world. I've been invited to the House of Lords to celebrate all things Health Data Research UK. I've been invited to University of New South Wales in Australia as a sort of visiting academic. And most recently, I gave a talk on AI in healthcare at the British Embassy in Brussels. Now, this is very much a highlights reel. I do want to let you know that my path has not always been straightforward. And actually, my career has very much felt like this image on the left-hand side here. And in particular, a career in the pharmaceutical industry has always been a temptation, particularly for those of us in data science and statistics. One of these reasons is that it offers job security, and it does offer significantly higher salaries. So a lot of people often ask me, why did I stay in academia? Well, I particularly enjoy having the scientific freedom to explore the ideas that I find most interesting. I get to work with really innovative collaborators, and we tend to work on really innovative ideas, really pushing the boundaries of what we think might be possible. For me, a big draw into academia was the opportunity to travel. And as you can see from my previous slide, there's been an awful lot of opportunities to network globally. And of course, I also work with a really great team that keep me motivated every single day. But I do want to leave you with just one point here, that actually academia and industry don't necessarily need to be mutually exclusive. So I actually work with the pharmaceutical industry quite a lot, and I do that via consultancy work. So I will often bridge the gap between academia and industry through things like advisory boards, or sometimes in previously I did more work sort of on the commissioned type work for the pharmaceutical industry. So it doesn't have to be a case of, do I need to be in academia or do I need to be in industry? There is a role for both. So what excites me about now and into the future, there's lots of things that excite me, but this is probably one of the bigger ones. I just find that healthcare is becoming increasingly complex. And this provides us lots of opportunities to address new and complex challenges. And one of the things that I'm working on at the moment is focusing on multiple long-term conditions. And in particular, there's lots of advanced therapies now that look at multi-use medications. So an example will be GLP-1 inhibitors. So these are things like your Ozempics and your Mounjaros that you might have seen in the news most recently. And these types of drugs actually target multiple targets in the body and therefore treat lots of different conditions. We have at the moment is it's very difficult with the frameworks that we have to appraise these interventions across disease areas. They tend to be looked at within single conditions in isolation. So I've recently been funded by Health and Care Research Wales and the NIHR on an advanced fellowship to ultimately come up with a framework that allows us to appraise these drugs appropriately. And this is part of the REMIT project, or Rethinking Health Policy in Multiple Long-Term Conditions. And one of the things that excites me the most about this work is I get to work with a range of stakeholders, and all of them have a different perspective. So I get to work with patients who are living with multiple long-term conditions and their carers. I get to work with policymakers like Welsh Government, Public Health Wales and NICE. I get to work directly with the NHS. And I also get to work with really great academics from across the UK and in particular across the devolved nations. And we're all working together to ultimately make the best use of the data we hold in the SaIL data bank for patients and for the NHS. So I have been asked to talk about a challenge faced and what it has taught me. And before I say a challenge, I just want to let you know that there have been many challenges, and often these talks don't talk enough about the challenges faced. But I have been asked to select just one, and I thought really long and hard about what that would be. And I think one challenge that I think might be an umbrella for many of the challenges I've faced actually is this one, and it's kindness being mistaken for weakness. And the lesson that I've taken from that is that I still think it's super important to be kind and to offer your time, your expertise, and your mentorship to others. But it is equally important to advocate for yourself. If you're finding that you are contributing your expertise and your time to a project or to individuals, I strongly feel that your input should be appropriately attributed. And I just want to leave you with one last message. So if I just had one message to share with women and girls who are thinking about a career in science, it would be this, and it would be to embrace your uniqueness with confidence. So your views, your experiences, your different way of thinking is ultimately what drives innovation. We need these different perspectives. And I would say that I've always been myself in my career, and it's often brought lots of comments, things like, you don't look like a statistician, you don't have the personality of a statistician. Sometimes I've been told that I look very girly, and lots of these things. But lots of female professors have also said to me that it's one of the things that they admire the most about myself is that I didn't change to fit a traditional view of what a career in science might look like. I'm still working out what that is. I'm still not sure. So I wouldn't say I've always embraced it with confidence. I've always had these comments that have made me question whether I'm suitable for a role in science. But I would just like to leave you with, everybody is suitable for a career in science, because ultimately the way in which you think you are different is what we need in order to drive innovation forward. So thanks very much. I'll hand you back to Sinead.
Thank you so much. Totally agree. I think it is variety that actually drives science. So I want to go on now and find out a bit more about Tash and Amy. And so maybe would maybe Amy, would you start with saying a wee bit about what your field is, your background, how you got there, and then maybe we could ask Tash to say a wee bit more about her, how she's got where she's got to.
Yeah, so I'm a health geographer. I'm also based at Swansea University, and that's how I kind of started out my academic career, was in geography. So I did my BSc in physical geography, and if you had told me then that I would end up working kind of in social science field, then I wouldn't have believed you, probably, because I used to take up extra modules to avoid any human geography modules. So I did extra chemistry and geology modules. But what really changed my thinking was when I studied for my master's. So I did my undergraduate at Leicester University and then stayed on to do my master's in geographic information systems. And I remember the first day of the course, the course director said, right, you're no longer to see yourselves as physical or human geographers, because if there are any geographers here, that is a real camp that exists. But that we are now to see each other as see ourselves as spatial scientists. And that just, for me, changed my thinking over that year, to see that human and planetary health, they're inherently linked, and that actually that's something that's really interesting. And after that, I wanted to stay on and do a PhD, and I was looking for different opportunities, and an opportunity came up at Swansea University, actually, as a research assistant, using kind of GIS skills in a health context. And on the application, it said, if you're interested in doing a PhD, then please apply. There may be future opportunities. And that's been my trajectory, my research career, I suppose, is that the opportunities have continued to come at Swansea. And I've been here since 2014 now, so a long time, but really enjoying. And since did my PhD here, and then I had a series of postdocs, and I've just finished a fellowship, and I'm now a senior lecturer in health data science. So I'll stop talking. Sorry, Tash.
Would you say then staying very open-minded, even to the things you think you don't like, that may actually be the path you take? That's
Absolutely.
Staying very open-minded to what doors open, really.
Yeah.
And Tash, what about you? your?
Oh, thank you. I'll share my screen because it's a bit convoluted, so I've got a little slideshow. Not as convoluted as Rhiannon's, but it's a bit different. So I've spent my entire time at Swansea Uni, so from my undergrad all the way through to where I am now. I've just been at Swansea, which I quite like. But so I started off with a BSc in zoology, and this was my first thing where I could actually make a difference somewhere. So my undergrad project was looking at different species of Orthoptera, so grasshoppers and crickets, and then how the management of the Oxford SSRI, the SSI even, Special Site of Scientific Interest, how the management of that actually promotes biodiversity, and grasshoppers, etc., are a key indicator species. So I managed to make a difference there, actually influenced how that works. And then I went into, fell into statistics, because zoology has quite a lot of statistics involved, and I found I quite liked that. So I then went over to engineering for a master's, where I was working in a sinter plant. So you can see a nice little picture there of the sinter plant that's now closed. Yes, so I did a master's in engineering, and then that turned into a PhD in material science over in engineering. But this was then going back a little bit to biology with my undergrad, where I was looking at using different species of bacteria to reduce pollution from the sinter plant. So looking mainly to reduce NOx into nitrogen and oxygen. So these are little pictures from my PhD. And then while I was awaiting my viva, I did some work experience in medical school with Sinead. And this is another example of making a difference for people. So I published a paper with Sinead and everyone else on health checks for adults with intellectual disabilities. And I thought that was really impactful and meaningful. And then I ended up with a job at Tata Steel, where I was working mainly in the blast furnace, still doing statistics because they wanted someone doing statistics. So, but over COVID, I had the opportunity to really reflect on what I'd done so far, and found I really liked what I was doing with Sinead, compared to what I was doing as an actual career. So I changed. An opportunity came up in Sinead's team, and I applied and got the job. And I've been there ever since. I was a researcher statistician, but then the opportunity came up with HDR UK to become a grant writer, and I took that. And since then, we've won a few grants, a couple of which are CareLink Wales, and then the Serena, which is a massive project that's been funded by the European Union. So that's me.
So you have tried everything, really.
Yes.
You've been
Jack
through
of all trades,
industry,
master of none.
you've been looking at bugs, you have done everything.
Yeah.
Which I guess set you up to be a grant writer, because now you have experienced a lot of different fields. Amy, what would you say were the main challenges you faced, and how would you say you've overcome them?
A couple of things, but I think something which I've reflected on, and this is because it's quite fresh to me, has been returning to research from maternity leave, and I suppose even to take a step back from that, even deciding when is the right time to have a family. Obviously, kind of mixing in research contract lengths, job security, as Rhiannon mentioned, and the fact that research continues while you're not here, and just factoring in those things. And I've got two young sons, and I took a year off with my first son, and I remember returning, and I had a bit of a shock because everybody was very supportive, but I don't think I had considered the difference that you are a different person. You know, your brain is biochemically different, and you've experienced something, a huge life event, I suppose. So I think I would summarize it as, for any ladies who might be returning in the future to work, to give yourself 9 months to a year to settle back in and feel confident in your role. And I found that really challenging, not feeling confident that I was doing a good job. And of course, that probably wasn't true. But my work colleagues were so supportive of that. But it was more my mindset of, oh, I don't think I'm delivering. And that might sound like a long time, but I think that's the reality. And to be kind to yourself, in that you will be doing a great job, but life has changed, and that's okay. That's a good thing. I came back about 9 months ago from my second maternity leave, and I've been much more relaxed, because I've been like, well, it's going to take me 9 months to a year to feel really in control of things again, and that's okay, and that's part of it. And so I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I have faced.
Well, a major life event, going back to work, really, to be honest, as well.
Yeah.
Tash, what about you? What would you say has been a challenge, and what have you?
Yeah, I think the whole making sure you're doing a good job, or worrying that you're not doing a good job, that's, like Amy said, that's something. But also going from engineering into medical, we have quite a change, because when I was doing my PhD, there was like 4 women to about 25 men. And then when I actually got the job, for a long time, I was the only woman in the team, which made it difficult for things like getting safety gear, because everything was in men's sizes. And you're like, okay, well, I'm this size, so what size is that? And then also for things like using facilities, I'd have to go over, when I was on site, you'd have to go get a key from someone and then go to a different building, because they didn't have women's changing rooms or women's toilets in every building, because it's mainly male, so they didn't need them. So that's a different sort of challenge, which you don't really have as much in medicine, because there's a lot more ladies in medicine.
So
Well, you might have the opposite
you were
problem.
going to a man to get the key to go to the toilet, basically.
Yeah.
How did you overcome the challenges of being the only woman in a team? So what has it taught you, really?
Well, I was a lot more pushy then, because I was like, you need to listen to me. This is what the results are showing. Like, for one thing, one of the sensors in the blast furnace, I can talk about this now because the blast furnace has been turned off, but one of the sensors at the very top, where they were meant to measure the temperature all throughout the blast furnace, because it's quite a delicate process and you need to have really good temperature control. and one of the sensors was returning just a random number. And it's like, well, no, it can't be in the 100,000s of degrees. This is wrong. And then, but they wouldn't listen to me, so I had to be really pushy. Like, there's something wrong with this sensor. It is not correct. But it took quite a while for them to actually listen. Yeah.
Because you were too busy trying to find the key to the loo.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something about what excites you about right now, about where things are at right now in your field?
For me,
Yeah.
yeah, I like being a grant writer. That means I get to see all the different projects people are coming up with and see all the ideas everyone's having, and it's very exciting seeing everything and all the potential research that could be undertaken, and how much of a potential difference it could make in the future. There's just too many exciting projects happening. It's very good.
What about you, Amy?
I think for me, it's seeing funders kind of have the revelation that I had 15 years ago, that planetary and human health are interlinked, and that you can't really separate out the environment from humans. And yeah, just really excited to be part of research that is not only showing how the environment impacts on health outcomes, but then kind of the data-driven adaptation strategies that need to be put in place in order to. We're kind of past the point now for climate change of hoping it won't happen. It's now about adapting to it. So being able to play my part in that is what excites me.
And any advice you give to any people coming up, women or girls coming through and interested in a career in science, and more the engineering, the bugs, the the planetary health? Any thoughts you've given one already, Amy, about don't judge yourself too much?
Do you want to go, Tash, or?
No, I can give you one. I would just say, make sure you work in a field that you can talk passionately about, because you'll be doing it for a long time. You end up looking at people being like, they can talk passionately about this work, but I really can't. Maybe change. Find something you really like and enjoy.
That's great. I think mine kind of links back to what you said, Rhiannon, about being kind. I love a quote. So I found a really lovely quote which says that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. And I think for me that kind of encompasses how I've learned to be Amy, and perhaps Amy needs to learn to be more direct and more assertive at different times, but I don't have to do it in a way that maybe is modeled, but actually how does Amy find that's genuine to me in being myself, but also learning how to get the most out of, ultimately, I suppose, the society that we live in, and communicating my ideas and my hopes, advocating for myself, that just as Rhiannon said, you do it in a way that's unique to you. And I guess I'm learning as I get older, you become less apologetic about yourself. That's a nice thing about aging, isn't it? You generally become more confident, and perhaps you think, oh, well, what's the worst? Something my dad used to say was, if I'd be worried, he'd say, the worst thing they can say is, there goes a girl with, and whatever I was worried about. And I often remind myself of that is, yeah, the worst they can say is, well, there goes a girl who, so it's if you're being kind and you're treating people well, then yeah, just continue to work hard and be yourself.
I wonder, or like open it up to everybody here now, as to have you got any questions you'd like to ask any of our three speakers, or have you got any thoughts or experiences you think you'd be happy to turn on your mic if there's any thoughts from people? Anna.
Hello. Can I just say, Rhiannon, Amy and Tash, that it's just lovely to hear and wonderful to hear your stories in relation to your work, from where you started to where you are now, and of course what your future ahead, etc. Absolutely fantastic. It's nice. I don't very rarely get very much time to step back and I was going to go for a walk for my lunch, but I'm glad I stayed here for a start. The question that I had, I suppose a little bit older than anyone starting in this subject, and I've just come into the end of a professional doctorate, and I've created an intervention for vascular patients, and my next phase is taking this into an efficacy trial, and I'm just applying now for funding for that. And I'm limited with my statistics knowledge, and I want to push that forward. So my next phase is looking at advanced statistics and also stepped wedge, random control trial, etc. Have you got any advice for a little bit on the older side woman to make sure that I keep everything in my brain? So any advice at all to take this forward?
Rhiannon, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got some advice, and I would say it is never too late to go into any of this. We've got people from all different age range across all different starts of their careers, and it's I think reflecting back on what I said, that uniqueness that you bring, you've got so much experience to bring to the role that others might not have. So bring that, bring it with confidence. Some advice perhaps would be, I would maybe look at funding from fellowship awards if you can, because the difference between fellowship and a grant is that it also comes with a comprehensive training plan. So you can acknowledge that perhaps you don't have experience at the moment in advanced statistics, but here's your training plan and this is how you're going to get that knowledge. And these fellowships really enable you to do that, both financially, but helping you create the right networks, making sure that you have the right mentors who can support you in developing your skills in that particular field. So there are lots of really good fellowships out there, particularly for people who are perhaps moving from one, I guess, topic into another one. So we have, similar to Tash, where she moved more from the engineering side into a more medical side, there's lots of translational fellowships that help to support that move. So I would definitely look at those opportunities purely because they come with this additional training, mentorship, networking, and they've been super invaluable for my career and to develop my own skills as well.
I'd also say, in learning anything new, give yourself, set aside time. Don't do things which are, you're trying to do them in the evening and at night and in the weekend, and then it's actually stressful. Put aside time. So this is really enjoyable. It's something you want to learn and to get expertise in and to be good at, and for it to be a positive thing. You put aside time to do it properly and then enjoy it. Learning new things is a massive enjoyment, I think. Sorry, Tash, go ahead.
So I knew a professor of statistics over in engineering. He's still a professor, but he is very knowledgeable in statistics. But he'd always say, if you went to him with a question, he'd go, "Let me look that up and I'll get back to you." He knew statistics, but he would always double check himself looking it up. So don't be afraid to look up. You might not know everything there is to know about statistics, but you are able. It's okay to look things up. Does that make sense?
Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, just adding to both the points there, really. I think, I suppose to come to your point first, Tash, yeah, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I guess, like, just what you've said there, Anna, really resonates with me, coming back to work and sleep deprived brain or whatever it is, and you just think, oh gosh, I can't, sometimes I've been frustrated by, I can't follow the conversation, to be super honest, but don't be afraid to say, right, can we rewind a second, because I guarantee you somebody else in the room will be thinking the same. Yeah, I think what's worse is if you try and cover up and then end up maybe not talking good science. And then to come to the fellowship point, so in my fellowship, something that I did was I built in a work placement for this on the more adventurous end. So I went for 3 months to Toronto. So my husband took a sabbatical and we took our son with us because I wasn't going to travel across the world without them. But I've just chatting with other colleagues where perhaps that doesn't work for family arrangements or whatever your situation is, then, you know, a short work placement or maybe regular trips to somewhere for a day trip to a uni which has an expert in, and maybe you'd build that in of you'd go 6 monthly. So just don't be afraid to ask of what suits you as your situation. My experience, funders are very supportive of those types of things. So again, don't be afraid to ask. Again, my new motto is becoming, if you don't ask, you don't get. So
I like that motto, and thank you very much, ladies.
Does anybody else have any questions or thoughts at all? I have one I want to ask is, and I don't think there's a right answer. I think it depends on people and variety of people. But Tash raised the thing of that if you're in an area that maybe you really like, but you're not getting people listen or feedback or a positive experience, it's very hard for you to sound positive about it. Do you keep going? Okay. Or do you go, I'm going to go to something easier or something that's I'm appreciated more or I'm recognized more? Or do you change? Or do you go, actually, no, this is something I know I'm good at and I really like, and I'm not being stopped? What is your advice?
Well, I changed. It's quite obvious, yeah. But I found I was more passionate talking about the work experience I did than the work I was currently doing. So it's like, well, and also because my interests lie more in statistics, when I was doing stuff with the blast furnace, it's becoming more chemistry. I was a bit like, well, and I could see that they were looking to close the blast furnaces potentially. So it's like, well, if something comes up in the area I actually am passionate in, I will go for it. And that's when the job came up, doing more statistics, everything that ticked all the boxes of something that I wanted to do. And there was a lot more opportunities to actually make a difference there as well, because Tata didn't have the money to make the changes that you were arguing. If you make this change, you'll make even more savings, because everything was about money there. Instead of being about this can help people's lives, it was how much money can you save? How can you improve the product?
Which
so
you're
yeah.
just advocating now for Rhiannon's saying about you can go into pharmacy or you can go, actually the business side of the world is very different than the academic university research side of the world.
Yeah.
So you are what?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on this as well. So I think it depends on the context. I'm a very stubborn person, and I'm an almost fight it out until the end type personality. But it really depends. So there's been times, for instance, when I've been on committees where I've raised some really important points that impact the whole population, and I've not been listened to, and it's really frustrating. And then one of my male colleagues would say exactly what I've said, and it would be attributed to them. A few things for everybody on this call. It's really nice to see some men on this call as well. One of my colleagues actually spoke up and kind of said, but Rhiannon said that half an hour ago and nobody listened. So, you know, advocate for your colleagues when they are saying these things. It makes a huge difference. And in that particular context, I stuck it out. Sinead, I kept going. But I've also been in positions where I've recognized that I'm just not growing anymore in a particular environment. And it felt very scary at the time to kind of say, I think I've just reached maybe my peak in this environment, and now I want something new, and I want new challenges, a new network, a new team, and new support. And that move was the best decision of my career, I think. So being exposed to a different way of working, a different team, has enabled me to grow and flourish. So I think it's also trust in your gut. You know, don't always change because you feel like you're not being listened to and whatever. Sometimes you have to just stick your heels in and really push forward. But there are times when your gut is kind of telling you, you know what, I think you could probably grow in a different environment. So unfortunately, I don't think it is as simple as move or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's just one practical point to that then, I think, is that like take the time to pause and stop and reflect the busyness of life or work deliverables or whatever it is. But actually, sometimes it's important just to stop and reflect, one, to even just reflect on your achievements or whatever it is. But I would just echo what Rhiannon says. I think there's nuance to that, isn't there, of what it looks like. But either way, I think it's always just good to reflect, pause and evaluate. And then if there's need to, then you can kind of plan out your next steps.
So Rhiannon, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to say is to surround yourself with good people, and in particular, good mentorship. So I've been very fortunate that I've had brilliant mentors throughout my career who I've been able to share these concerns with, talk about options, and they've given me a very objective view of, you know, what they think. And having them outside of your universities or your organization I found to be particularly helpful, because they don't really have I guess a stake in the ground as to whether you stay or not, and getting that feedback from a completely external person independent of your choices has been super valuable for me. So do surround yourself with good people and good mentors.
Cedric, did you have your hand up there? Or wasn't
sorry, it was just to applaud the sentiment in particular. I worked in teaching for 36 years, and so all of my working life has really been majority female, including now. But even there, seeing the problems you're all talking about, and what particularly struck me was Rhiannon's sentiment of lift up your colleagues, you know, whoever you are, that makes such a difference. So it's the double hit, as all three ladies have said, advocate for yourself. I know you shouldn't have to, but it's a good character quality to be strong and convicted. This is who I am and this is why I'm here. I'm here to make a difference. And at the same time, effectively advocate for others. So sorry to break in. Thank you for the opportunity. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely fabulous. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
I just wanted to mention something that Rhiannon said at the beginning of the call around not looking like a scientist, statistician or whatever. That's something that very much resonated with me. I went back to university aged 40 to study data science, and it turns out that 40-year-old women don't study data science. So I was, you know, obviously surrounded by 23-year-old men mostly. But working as a data scientist now, that's something that I still sort of very much encounter. Is once people get to know me, they go, oh yes, that's Dalith, she does data science. But when you first meet people, you look at me and you know, data science isn't the career that you you know, immediately springs into your head. So I was just wondering if Rhiannon, yourself, or any of the other speakers had any advice on how to deal with that, and whether you do just have to sort of suck it up a little bit and you know, practically walk around wearing a t-shirt saying I am actually X career, or if there are any ways to help manage that.
Yeah, it's been a really tough one for me, Dalith. I would say it's one of the biggest challenges that I've faced in my career, and I think it's coupled with my gender, my personality type, but also my age, I think has really been a problem for me in my career. And I used to get really frustrated. So I was going to a meeting that was specifically for statisticians, and I would be asked, am I here to take the notes? And when my professor would be arriving, in some ways now, Delith, I embrace it. I really enjoy their faces drop when they find out that I am the professor of statistics, and that I actually know my stuff and I'm here for a reason. So I think the approach that I take now is I give them grace. I think for a start, I kind of understand now that I think these events need to happen more often so that we start to challenge those biases and those gender stereotypes. And I think we're getting there. So I think things will improve. But I also just really enjoy it when I say, yes, I'm here to take the notes. That's not a problem. And then I kill them with some stats and they're just blown away. But then I thrive being the underdog, I think. So it might not be for everyone. I think I had to start to see the funny side of it, else it would have driven me mad. I'm not sure if there's a better approach. If there is, I'd be really grateful to hear from this this group, but that's certainly how I've handled it in the past.
Was that helpful,
Yeah, thank you. I do agree with it. It is quite nice when you have that sort of mic drop moment of like, yeah, I'm not actually here to make the tea, but thank you.
Exactly. But thank you for your input. That was brilliant. Yes, you know, it's just yeah. Hopefully things will change with time. I think we are starting to see those changes.
So unless there's any other comments or thoughts from people, I think we'll let Rhiannon and Amy and Tash off to go and let them off the hook now from being questioned and queried by us all. So thanks so much for being happy to talk about your experiences and how you got, you know, where you've got to in your career and giving people advice and help. So thank you.
And thanks, Sinead, for organising as well, because I think these events are really important. And obviously there's lots of people on the call who share similar challenges and things. So talking about them and highlighting them, I think has been a really, really powerful thing. So thank you for organising.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to highlight that the next webinar is for anybody interested in cardiovascular health. And that is on the 26th of February. And it's basically bringing together those in British Heart Foundation data science and the cardiac network across Wales. So, and thanks very much to everybody and hopefully see you all soon. See ya.